Right, I'm gonna make us a video here about Taylor Swift. Arguably the most influential artist of the 21st century, T-Swizz, as nobody's called her in years, is a multi-platinum selling recording artist who has a trophy cabinet that is bursting at the seams and is the only person to escape the 2019 film Cats relatively unscathed. Through her emotional lyrics and her approachable girl-next-door persona, Taylor Swift has forged an incredible, intense connection with a humongous worldwide fan base. It's a connection so powerful that scientists are actually trying to harness the energy to use as a renewable fuel source. But beyond her undeniable skill, Taylor Swift has built herself an empire and actually found a way to redefine what it means to be an artist in modern music. This woman has such a brilliant business brain that she is currently on one of, if not the most lucrative tours in the history of live music, and she has named it the Eras Tour because she's performing music from across her back catalogue, which, forgive me, sounds like every tour ever. But her fanbase, myself included, have lapped it up. She's a genius. And last week she released her latest album, a re-record of her 2010 effort, Speak Now, brackets, Taylor's version. This is the third album that she's re-recorded and re-released. That's too many re's, but that's why she's the successful writer and I'm here wearing my pajamas under the table. And I put it to you that at this stage of her career, with all the success that she's had, this release is the most fascinating thing she has ever put out. All because of a simple lyric change 45 minutes into the album. Brace yourselves because we're gonna get deep. Hi, I'm Dan Layton, and on this channel I like to ruin that thing you love by overthinking it to death. But first, I think I'm gonna give the album another spin, and my favourite place to listen to music is in the kitchen. Luckily, this video is sponsored by HelloFresh. HelloFresh is a meal kit delivery service. Each week you pick a selection of recipes from an array of options, and the ingredients get delivered straight to your door. All you have to do is open the box, pick which recipe you'd like to make that night, and get cooking. That's it. It's so easy. And there are so many options to choose from, whatever your dietary requirements. There's meat, fish, vegetarian, there are dishes with an international inspiration, and you can even pick from categories like family friendly, low calorie, rapid, if you just want to get dinner on the table as quick as possible. It's absolutely up to you. I am a summer boy, we know this about me, so when the sun comes out, I like to spend as much time as possible out and about in the daylight, so the food shop gets pretty low on my list of priorities. So having the ingredients delivered to my door means I don't have to worry about that. I know I've got dinner sorted already, and I can enjoy the summer the way I want to, which is lazily. Every recipe comes with a card and step-by-step picture instructions, so I don't have to overthink anything. I just wander into the kitchen when I'm ready to eat, I put on my Taylor playlist, my Taylist, if you will, and you must, and I get cooking, and when I'm ready, I settle down, probably in front of a particular documentary, who could possibly say, and I enjoy a fresh, home-cooked meal. There are no commitments, it's fully customizable if you want more recipes or fewer, if you want to pause your delivery for 1 week, or even if you want to cancel your subscription entirely, it's completely up to you. If you've been hovering around HelloFresh for a while, thinking of giving it a try, well, now is the perfect time, because boy, have I got the code for you. Be incredibly modern and scan this QR code, or be traditional and use this code, following the link in the description, and you'll get 60% off your first box and 25% off each additional box for the next 8 weeks. Goodness me. Thanks again to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to talking at length about a 13-year-old lyric. In 2005, Taylor Swift signed a record deal with independent label Big Machine Records. While signed to them, she released 6 albums, all of which went multi-platinum, and she won 10 Grammy Awards, becoming the first solo woman to win Album of the Year twice. She later broke her own record and won it for a 3rd time. She and I are the same age. I haven't even won a pub quiz 3 times. As an artist who's been writing music for her whole life, owning her work is very important to Taylor, so when her deal is coming to an end, she starts trying to negotiate a deal to buy back her master recordings from the record label, who owns them. Dan, I hear you ask, what is a master recording? Well, in very simple terms, it is the official recording of a piece of music from which copies are made and distributed. In the olden days, it would have literally been on a tape. The olden days. Who am I? By way of example, here is my copy of Taylor's 2012 album, Red. Look at this historical relic. The key word there is copy, because this is a physical reproduction made from the original recordings of all the songs held herein. Under US law, and I cannot stress enough that my degree is in film production, there are 2 types of copyright for musical work, and I can already see your eyes are glazing over. Please stay with me. There's one for the song as a piece of artistry, the writing, etc. of the song before it was recorded, those are publishing rights, and then there's one for the official recording of that song that has been written, and that is a master. And basically the people who own the masters decides who gets to use that recording of the song. Generally speaking, that's record labels, because they put up money for studio time, writing sessions, recording sessions, promotion, distribution, tours, sometimes they'll give you a cash advance. Often they can be taking a chance on an artist without certainty that they'll see a return on their investment. So to compensate, they own the master recordings and they make money off them through licensing. If you hear a song in a movie or on TV or in a commercial, the owners of those masters have licensed that recording. If you stream it, it's because the owners of that recording have licensed it to be on that platform. That's why some songs are on Apple Music but not on Spotify. And the owners of the publishing rights to those songs will also make some money. So when I bought this copy of Red, a portion of the money went to Taylor Swift as the writer of the songs, and a portion of it went to the record label as the owners of her masters. Are we clear? Any questions so far? Are you staying hydrated? Fantastic. Let's move on. Fast forward to the end of Taylor's contract with Big Machine, and we start to pivot from Leighton's law school to Leighton's business school. I'm so qualified. In renegotiating her deal, Taylor asks to buy back her masters from Big Machine Records. That way she'll own 100% of her art. But these masters are a valuable asset to the Big Machine label, so they counter with an offer that basically says, sign a new record deal for 10 new albums, and with each one you deliver, we will release one of your original master recordings back to you. A sort of one-in, one-out deal. Taylor doesn't love this. So imagine you are an independent record label and your prized asset is becoming unsettled and letting it be known. You're gonna start exploring options. And one of those options is to sell your business and its assets and then move on to your next venture. The thing is, Taylor Swift is a very savvy businesswoman and she knows this is what might happen, so she doesn't want to tie her future down to a record label who may be sold who knows where. Instead, she signs a new deal with a new record label, still with the intention of trying to negotiate a deal to buy back her master recordings. Instead, Scott Borchetta, who runs Big Machine, sells everything to a chap named Scooter Braun. I could make a whole other video about the relationship between Taylor Swift and Scooter Braun, but that would take a while, so let me try and boil it down. It's not good! Among many things, Scooter manages Kanye West, who has been, something of an antagonist of Taylor since she was about 19. Bit of a euphemism. In her own words, the master recordings of her music being the property of this man was her worst case scenario. It meant that every time I gave Red a spin, by the way, one of the best albums of all time, on a streaming platform, Scooter would make a bit of money off of Taylor's artistry. And because the people who own the master recordings can basically do whatever they want with those master recordings, Scooter could stand to make a fair bit of money off Taylor's artistry. For an example of this, in 2020, Scooter Braun's Big Machine Records releases a live album of songs Taylor performed at a 2008 concert. She is not consulted, she does not give permission, but these master recordings don't belong to her, so they get released anyway. So this is where Taylor decides to play 4D chess. She says, I'm gonna do something that's gonna make those master recordings less valuable, and she announces a plan to re-record her first 6 albums. Sidebar, I was reminded recently that it was Kelly Clarkson who initially suggested this idea with a tweet in July 2019, and as if we need more reasons to believe Kelly Clarkson is an actual angel sent on this earth to grace us with her beauty and kindness and spirit. You see, by faithfully recreating all of those songs, which she is able to do because she owns the publishing rights, she will own the new master recordings and is free to license them however she pleases without Scooter Braun making a cent. Now, a few months after the purchase, Scooter Braun actually sold those master recordings on to a new investor, Shamrock Holding. Taylor was keen to work in partnership with the new owners, but found out the sale had been agreed in such a way that Braun would continue to benefit financially from the masters, so she drew a hard boundary and decided to move forward with her re-releases. To date, she has released 3 of these recordings, all proudly bearing the banner Taylor's version. So you as a consumer know, when you search a song on a streaming platform and you have 2 presented to you, if you play the one that says brackets Taylor's version, then the artist is going to be the one that makes the money from that, not the man who bought the artist's work out from under them. That's the basic story, and that's fascinating enough as it is, I reckon. But this is Taylor Swift we're talking about, and if you're unfamiliar with Taylor's work, first of all, how, and thank you for being here, but second, what you need to know is that this woman is extra. She used to write in a padlock diary with a feather quill. She carries her cat in a backpack. She once arrived at the VMAs in a literal horse-drawn Cinderella carriage. There's even a rumour, and I fucking love this, that she spent a period of time leaving her house in a suitcase to avoid the paparazzi. She leaves little Easter egg clues all over her work for her fans, to the point where I think that National Treasure 3 should see Nicolas Cage trying to uncover the secrets of Area 51 by trawling through Taylor Swift music videos. There wasn't a chance in hell that she was just gonna drop these new recordings and then move on, was there? And so, what we have is a 3-pronged project. Number 1, it's a business move. By releasing these albums, she does decrease the value of the original master recordings, encouraging her fans to listen to the new ones instead. She says as much in her letter to Shamrock Holdings. Number 2, it's also a protest project, because while you can understand a record label wanting to see a return on investment by ownership of these masters, when you dig a little deeper, it's not hard to find evidence that recording contracts can be predatory. It's not hard to find artists that have been screwed over by recording contracts that have been signed when the artist has no real leverage left to fight for a better deal. And in many cases, that has seen artists experience little to no return on the massive success of their own work. So by taking a stand like this, Taylor is essentially making the point, reminding the record labels that ultimately it is the art and the artist that forges the connection with the fans that makes these pieces of art so valuable in the first place. And the third prong, and the most interesting to me at least, is that it's also an artistic endeavour. There's a reflective nature to this work. Firstly, because these are songs written in some cases over 15 years ago, and singing them after all that new life experience, well, that's going to lead you down a path. But also, each of these albums comes with a selection of tracks known as From the Vault. These are songs written during the recording process that didn't make the final cut. Some of them were given to other artists, others have never been heard before. And they serve two purposes. Not only do they add new flavour to the record, they also give returning fans something new, aside from the protest element, to give them an imperative to return to these records. I just think it's a fascinating project. Many artists around this stage in their career tend to release like greatest hits albums to seek out new fans, find a new audience. Taylor essentially has just decided to do that, but for every single one of her songs. And it is ballsy to treat all of your songs as greatest hits, but then when you've won Album of the Year twice before you're 26, who am I to disagree? But with the release of her version of Speak Now, a brand new spice has been added to the mix, something that's caused quite the debate among Swifties. It's a choice that has raised several questions about what this project has been, what it currently is, and where it's going. Because Taylor, sit down, brace yourself, has changed a lyric. Alright, it's track 10. Picture the scene. Taylor puts on her best pop-punk drag, she grabs her girls rock tie from Claire's Accessories, and she drops a Paramore Avril Lavigne style track called Better Than Revenge. Now you see her boyfriend had met a different girl and broken up with her to pursue it, and that wasn't very nice. So she writes a song about the girl, and it's it's not flattering. She absolutely lets rip on this girl. It's a song of spite, of jealousy, of pettiness, and it's so much fun. It's the kind of song that you scream sing with your windows down while you're driving off your latest heartbreak. It's the kind of song that you put on when you're walking to meet your ex and pick up the stuff you left at their house so that you can go in with that kind of steely, I'm incredibly over you attitude, which, let's be honest, they see right through, but that's not the point! And in the original song, Taylor, who is very cross with the girl, sings this lyric. She's an actress. Whoa. She's better known for the things she does on the mattress. I mean, the library is open. The lyric is somewhat controversial. It's hard to deny that it's a bit slut-shamey, because it is. And in recent years, there's been a re-examination of our relationship with that particular brand of shade. Paramore themselves stopped performing their massive hit Misery Business for a while because of a line that goes, once a whore, nothing more. And in a 2014 interview, Taylor spoke about how she regretted the tone of the song overall, noting that you grow up and learn that nobody is ever taken from a relationship against their will. So in the lead up to this re-record, a great deal of debate and discourse and scuttlebutt took place over whether or not she would sing the lyric, change the lyric, who knew? And everyone feigned shock and awe when it turned out that yes, indeed, she had actually changed the lyric, and now it goes like this. She's an actress, whoa. He was a moth to the flame, she was holding the matches. Which is a pretty decent lyric. Not quite the burn of the original, pun sort of intended, but still a nice visual. And because the rest of the song basically stays the same, it might seem like a minor detail, but if it were a minor detail, I wouldn't have written a 5,000 word video essay on it, would I? So let's carry on. There appear to be two main responses to the lyric change. The first camp is Taylor's an artist, she can do whatever she wants, it's her choice. And I do agree with that. In the course of revisiting this music, she's decided she's no longer comfortable with this line, and she wants to alter it to better reflect her current worldview. And that is absolutely her prerogative. And besides, she's far from the first artist to make a lyric change. Shall we do a Hall of Fame? Beyonce and Lizzo both changed the same lyric in their songs last year. Lizzo in Girls and Beyonce in Heated. They'd used the same word, which is an ableist slur in the UK, but is less discriminatory in the US. But when this was brought to their attention, they said, alright, and they changed it. In the same vein, the Black Eyed Peas song Let's Get It Started was originally called something else that was also an ableist slur in the UK, but less so in the US, which does beg the question, what's going on, America? Here's a fun one that not many people talk about. The Spice Girls changed the lyric. Yes, they did. In the album version of Two Become One, Jerry sings the line, boys and girls go good together. I picked the wrong key. But when the band took off, they, unsurprisingly, built a massive gay following, and so they decided to change the lyric on single release to be more inclusive. So now Victoria sings the line, love will bring us back together. Very progressive for 1996. And speaking of the gays, Taylor has previous in the rewriting milieu. In a song on her first album called Picture to Burn, the original lyric was, you tell your friends I'm crazy, that's fine, I'll tell mine you're gay. So, safe to say she's changed it. What's interesting about all of these examples, though, is that they all happened relatively close to the time of the initial release of the song. In Better Than Revenge, we are looking at it 13 years hence. People have 13 years worth of experience and passion for this song, and now there's a lyric change. And that brings us to another response to the lyric change, which goes, oh, I'm glad she's made the change because now it's not so slut-shamey and I can enjoy the song without feeling icky. Which I do understand, but also, have you listened to the rest of the song? Because I'm not so sure this particular lyric change suddenly turns this song into a beacon of feminism. After all, while the line "moth to the flame" does put some of the blame on her ex, and is also incidentally the second Janet Jackson reference that Taylor has made in the past calendar year, for which I'm hugely grateful, the rest of the track is excoriating this poor girl. I mean, she impugns her integrity and she questions everything from her career to her fashion choices. I mean, Taylor goes in, and by the way, no amount of vintage dresses gives you dignity is a really fucking shady line from someone who dressed like this for 2 entire album cycles. But here's the thing, and I know this is gonna sound weird, I don't mean any of this as a criticism. I actually think they all work in favour of this song because they're what make it a kind of time capsule to the sort of pettiness that you feel when you're 18 and you've just had your heart broken. This song is angry, it's fuming, it's biting, it's vitriolic in every sense, lyrically, but also orally, I never know how you say that. It's the musical equivalent of that bit in Mean Girls where Regina George screams all the way home and starts writing in the burn book. It sounds like the rush of blood to your head where you can't see straight because you're so blinded by hurt and fury. And when we're in that position, we don't often think rationally or fairly when we're assessing someone's character. We smack talk, we say shit that we shouldn't say, we're not kind, we're not gracious, and we're usually not very good allies. It's a timeless example of the necessary delusion we all need to start healing. And if you're sitting there saying, not me, wouldn't be me, that's actually a very backwards way of looking at things. Bootstrap Bill, you're a liar, and you will spend eternity on this shit. I'm not saying that it's healthy, I'm not saying that it's good, and I'm certainly not saying that it's fair. It just is. And look, Taylor choosing to change it and reflect the artist and the woman that she is now is a wonderful thing, and I fully support it. That said, authenticity as an artist is very important, and especially to this artist, so I can also understand why some people feel that changing it goes against the spirit of what the song was and what their experiences were. Interestingly, I am noticing a little bit of a generational divide here. Newer, younger fans are more inclined to be like, yeah, I actually prefer this, it's a much nicer lyric. And the older fans who went through that time and grew up with this song feel like something is missing in the new version. Which is not to say that they're not supportive of the choice, overwhelmingly it seems that they are, it's just that when they fancy having a mini rage at something, they're probably gonna go to the old version. And that right there is the reason that I've been off on one for the past week telling anybody who will listen all about this, because it poses the question, what's next? The next 3 albums released as part of this project are, I would argue, the most interesting of all. We have 1989, the album which was a turning point in her career that took her from megastar to global icon. We have Reputation, which is barely 5 years old at this point. And then we have her debut album, which was recorded when she was 15 years old. And now that Taylor has set a precedent of being willing to go back and change the source material, however lightly, kind of all bets are off. And this is why I'm so fascinated by it and obsessed with it and what it means and as her as an artist, and I just can't, I've not stopped thinking about it for about a week. Because I think it says so much. It's a tiny change, but it says so much and it has such giant, it's like a butterfly effect. Okay, let's calm down and get into it because, okay, first of all, it says to me that this was never purely a business decision on her part. I think if all she wanted to do was get her versions out of there, then she would have released all of these albums as a box set and have done with it. I mean, she's already released one single from the 1989 album, so it stands to reason that the other tracks could have been ready and waiting to go for a while. And we know that the original intent of this project was to recreate these songs as faithfully, as closely as possible, because, first of all, it's what she said, but also her collaborators are on record saying as much. Colby Calais said that when she re-recorded her vocals for Breathe, her directive was to make it sound very similar to the original. Sidebar, Breathe is god tier and doesn't get nearly enough recognition. See also Clean and Treacherous, I Will Die on These Hills. That's one prong, and it all feeds into the second prong that I talked about earlier, which is the protest element. Because Taylor's relationship with her fans is such that, by presenting them with identikit versions of the albums they already love, she's able to mobilize them into making these new versions the authentic, proper, real versions of these albums. She's offering them not only a guilt-free listening experience, but one that makes a statement about artists' rights. And while we're on the topic of her relationship with the fans, I could make an entirely separate video about the parasocial relationship her fans have with her that has been in large part fostered by Taylor herself. The woman has redefined fandom, and within that is a conflicting message about not wanting intrusion and speculation on her personal life in one breath, while in the next, sort of offering Easter eggs and treasure hunts and breadcrumb trails in the liner notes of her albums for fans to take part in a gleeful speculation about who these songs are about. It's just really interesting, and sometimes, in fact often, that speculation goes too far, and it's important to remember that these songs, like any breakup songs really, are by definition half of the story. And I don't want to get sidetracked, so I'll bring it all back to the music itself, because the fan connection almost transcends that music, and that is all part of Taylor's gift. Which is why it's so interesting to me that by choosing to alter a lyric, knowing full well how passionate the connection is between her fans and this source material, she has made a tacit acknowledgement that the business/protest element of these re-releases has its limits. She knows that some fans are going to prefer the original and keep it on their playlists, and as a result, give money to the outfit that owns her original masters. So in the process of remaking this album, she has considered that, weighed it up, and decided that it's a sacrifice worth making for her artistry. Which brings us back to the artistry of it all. It's fascinating! Now, some critics and analysts have talked about how recreating 1989 and Reputation might be a difficult enterprise given their pop-centric sound. But I don't know about that, because the producers and collaborators on those records are still very much part of Taylor's inner circle and have been present on all the work she's done since, so I think they're probably going to be fine. No, I'm far more interested in the massive challenge she's going to face trying to recreate her debut album, because this Taylor Swift and this Taylor Swift are light years apart at this stage. Much like this Dan Layton is light years apart from this Dan Layton, and that's enough of that. I don't relate to that old version of myself at all, and I haven't had anywhere close to the, let's call it, unique life experience of this woman. But musically, even with her beautiful and acclaimed folk-inspired albums, current Taylor bears little to no resemblance to Tim McGraw-Taylor, and her voice, with 20 years of life experience and just honing a craft, like if you practice something for 20 years, you're gonna get better at it, you're gonna learn new ways to use it, so her voice is unrecognisable. It's not, but I wanted a more impactful word for the end of that sentence than different. So she kind of can't recreate this album identically. She just straight up doesn't sound like that anymore, which is going to make for an interesting and perhaps odd listening experience for some of her fans. Which doesn't even take into account the difficulty in the performance of slipping yourself back into the mindset you were in when your biggest life worries were that your ex let another girl drive the truck that he never let you have a go on. In fairness, that would make me fuming too. Some have written about this new Speak Now that the fire and urgency of the original is lost in translation, that the bitterness and the passion have somewhat mellowed, which totally makes sense. I mean, these are experiences from her past that she's largely over now. She even told us so.
I don't care about anything that happened to me when I was 19 except the songs I wrote when I was young.
But I didn't feel that about her other re-records, which is why it's curious that I do about this one. The first re-record that she put out was Fearless. Far more intelligent people than me can talk about the differences in production between the songs, but my reading of it is that it sounds fuller, it sounds more polished, it's like a 4K restoration. But in that restoration, I actually found some things were elevated. So for me, the song 15 took on entirely new meaning as a 30-year-old. I fully cried. It took a song, but Don't Come For Me was kind of skippable, and made it essential. And when I think about that, the metatextual, multi-layered, reflective experience of that song that came without her having changed a single thing is utterly compelling. And I confess, I am very reserved about changing lyrics or updating meanings in any kind of art. The films we watch, the books we read, the music that we love, it becomes part of the fabric of our lives. It informs where we've been and showcases where we are. A single snare drum can transport us straight back to a certain time in our lives, and when you've done that and something happens in the song that is different, it can feel really uncanny. It's like seeing a picture of a street in the 1940s, and as you're looking at it, you spot that someone is wearing Air Jordans. That's not quite right. And yet the circumstances that have led to these albums being made, released, pored over, these vault tracks being re-examined, are so unique that it almost feels necessary, particularly in the case of the debut album, to seize the opportunity to re-examine it creatively. Perhaps she's arrived at a point in this process where the urgency of the business and the fire of the protest that this project began with has given way to the more reflective and soul-nourishing parts of it. The project is working, it's done what it set out to do, and perhaps it's even gone as far as it could on that score. So maybe now, knowing the difficulty of recreating an album like her debut, she's found an acceptance in those limitations, and with that acceptance has come a creative freedom. If you can't recreate the same sort of ingenue, breathless child element of that original album, and you know that that's going to lead people to keep listening to the original record, well, maybe you give them your blessing in that respect by following your artistry and taking the album, revisiting it in an entirely new way. I mean, all of this is pure speculation, and I'm overthinking it, and I'm taking something tiny and extrapolating it in a big way, and it's fucking Taylor Swift, right? She can do whatever she wants. But also, we know Taylor Swift, and she probably would like me reading this far into it. And hot takes are flying around left, right, and centre. Ultimately, it boils down to one thing: this particular artist and her choices. The question is, what does this unique powerhouse of a musician want to say next? And that is so exciting.